campaign, and currently as the executive director at the Clean Air Partnerships.
Thanks so much, Amy. I really appreciate it. And thanks so much for organizing. This is like super fast and efficient. Gotta appreciate that. And I'm gonna go really fast because I do have a fair amount to cover, but there's a lot of resources and I will be putting those links in the chat. I just won't do it by my during the presentation because I can't multitask that well on that front. But hi, everybody. I'm Gabby. I'm from the Clean Air Partnership. We're a charitable environmental organization. And really our main modus operandi is just to really help municipalities and their various partners advance their clean air and climate change ambitions and implementation as well. We serve as a network facilitator for the Clean Air Council, which is a peer-to-peer municipal staff level climate actions network. And then we work with the National Climate Caucus to facilitate an Ontario chapter of the Climate Caucus, which brings municipal officials together to focus on Ontario specific climate action opportunities as they've identified them. So one of the first things that came out about is when we were having conversations across the municipal staff network, a lot of municipalities were asking like, okay, so bringing climate change into official plans. Great, think it's a great idea. Now, can you give me a little bit of guidance on how to do that? And we decided, you know what, it probably makes a lot more sense for all of us to just kind of come together and brainstorm together and identify some of the kind of like what is emerging as leading practices associated with what bringing climate change into official plans really means. But one of the first things that came up about that is that really local decisions about growth management have huge influence on the amount of energy use that is used by residents, businesses, institutions in order for them to just move to and from, heat their buildings, manufacturing products, whatever it might be. But all of those local kind of growth management decisions have energy implications, and how the municipality grows and grows its community is going to have implications for how much energy is needed. So local decision as land use are all brought into official plans, and bringing those financial and climate sustainability implications into growth management and infrastructure decisions and overall land use planning just makes logical sense. It's just overwhelming to figure out where to start doing that. So one of the first things that many municipalities have done as part of this is they have done a lot more work over the last number of decades on truly understanding their infrastructure costs. But one of the key factors is that there's different types of infrastructure costs that need to be brought into consideration. The one that we've made the most improvements thus far on is cost number one, how much it costs to build new developments, the infrastructure for new growth, which speaks to the upfront capital cost. And largely that's paid for from development cost collected from growth, but we can get into debates on whether how much of that is actually covered by development charges. I've seen some numbers between anywhere from 70 to 90% in Ontario, but that is one of the areas about how that gets covered. But cost number two, which is how much it costs the municipality to service development with regards to road maintenance, water services, utilities, transit, all of that kind of stuff, is all paid for from the property tax base. And some municipalities have done some really good work on bringing those service costs into their development cost studies. Where we have to do a lot more analysis is in cost number three. We haven't spent as much time truly understanding how much it costs to rehabilitate the infrastructure when that time inevitably comes. And I know we don't think about it when new developments are being built, but this time will come. And it might not be during your term, during a term that you're at the municipality, but we know that inevitably this time will come. And that is largely paid for from the property tax base. It may have some contributions from other levels of government, but let's face it, it's largely the property tax base for that pays for that rehabilitation costs. So how about comparing those costs to property tax revenue? How many municipalities have done the work of truly understanding their cost outlays for servicing or for rehabilitation and bringing that into their property tax analysis to better understand which land use archetypes are covering their costs, which don't? and then not simply averaging those costs all across their municipality, which is our present approach, but breaking it down into different types of land use archetypes to better understand the differentiation across land uses. So right now, growth cost studies have focused largely on upfront capital cost of building infrastructure. We really need to put a lot more emphasis on servicing and rehabilitation costs and understanding how property taxes and costs vary across different types of land use. So I would really encourage that next time the municipality is undertaking a development cost study scope, include in the analysis, not just focus on cost number 1 and 2, but bring in cost number 3 into that analysis. And don't just average it across your municipality, but truly try and explore the differences across different land use archetypes. If that is good, your next development cost study is a good number of years down the road and you don't want to wait and you want to try and understand a little bit of the analysis for your community, there is a really great tool called value per acre analysis. It's from Strong Towns. It's a US organization, so it will be in kind of the metrics that US jurisdictions we use, but it is an opportunity for you to kind of do some preliminary analysis on that can help answer those questions, or at least create some dialogue within the municipality related to it. There are a few municipalities who has done that work in terms of better understanding their analysis. One of the examples is Planet Calgary. And again, it's just looking at different types of land use and growth management strategies and what's the cost associated with it. But really what it came down to it is that there's significant cost savings to building more intense, and for that reason, there's some that needs to be brought into consideration. Another example that you might want to be interested in exploring is Halifax has done some of this work as well and recognize that there's some significant cost savings. So they found that their business as usual, they kind of compared either hypothetical scenario A or scenario B to their business as usual. And you can see the cumulative savings. These are cumulative savings over a 30-year time period that would be associated with that. And then the University of Toronto study did some really good explorations of better understanding our carbon footprints across different types of land uses. And really what they found is that for the large majority that we've seen a lot of GHG inventories, transportation and buildings are two of the biggest chunks associated with that. How much that varies or which one gets the majority will largely depend on their land use. And if they are more suburban with lack of access to transit and not active transportation infrastructure, then transportation emissions will be higher than their building emissions. But generally it is a very significant, buildings and transportation are two of the most significant areas. And if you're not building your communities to be transit oriented, the reliance on the personal vehicle will always be higher. So when we first started kind of asking municipalities, like, what are you doing to bring climate change into your official plans? Really, we decided that it probably made sense to kind of bring people together and do some brainstorming. So we had a number of workshops to bring a variety of different staff people from different departments together to better understand how are they approaching bringing climate change into official plans, and what's the differences in perspectives across different kind of jurisdictions. I will throw that into it. We summarized that up into a clean air partnership. It's a bringing climate change into official plans primer. This is a kind of a snapshot, really quick tour through it, but I'll put in the chat for where you can get more information on it. And then official plans, really when it comes down to it, we really wanted to understand the differences in perspectives. So we looked at it from the perspective, what are planning folks saying? What are climate change folks saying? What are public health folks saying? What are stormwater folks saying? So how is there difference across, not just differences of opinions across different municipalities, but difference of opinion within municipalities? And really what it came down to it is a municipality doesn't, or I should say, like, really there's a lot of different kind of education opportunities that I should sort of highlight. That was one of the first things that came out in the analysis, is the official plan serves as a really good education opportunity, not just for municipal staff, but also for municipal councils and for the general community as a whole in terms of climate change and what it means to the municipality. So one of the first things that many municipalities said is that if the municipality does not yet have a council direction to develop a climate action or community emissions plan, that the official plan should commit them to doing so. And there's a whole bunch of variety of different types of things relating to inventories, targets, actions, implementation, progress reporting, stakeholder engagement, who's going to be responsible for what, the monitoring and reporting framework that be associated, and how this plan will be updated on an ongoing basis. It was identified also that if the municipality does not have a council direction just as yet to develop a climate adaptation plan, the official plan should state the development of such a plan, and it would include a number of things very similar to the mitigation plans. It would speak to the kind of the climate adaptation and resilience. What's the impacts, the vulnerabilities associated with that? And if you, yes, you absolutely can create an official plan even if you don't have a climate change plan. It's just, you absolutely, and you must develop an official plan even if you don't have a climate action plan. It's just a matter of bringing that integration so that your climate action plan is speaking to your official plan and the official plan is speaking back to the climate action plans. What's also really came out is that, again, speaking to it, developing a climate adaptation plan, the monitoring reporting framework, the updating process. Another thing that came up is that if the municipality already has a climate mitigation or adaptation plan, then there's some work that needs to be done to bring those plans and integrate them into the official plan. So that could include something like, that could include summarizing energy and emissions, or it could just be referencing that plan and the latest version of that plan in the official plan, with then kind of aligning the integration across those ones. So it can be done at different levels of detail, but one of the most important things that everybody agreed on is there has to be some sort of integration or connection between these plans. Now, planning staff definitely had a tendency to think about less information being better, and then climate change staff wanted more information to be better. But one of the things both agreed on is that they wanted to avoid PETA results, which I called the pain in the ass outcomes, which would then kind of, as climate change plans get updated, you don't want to have to do official plan amendments. So you got to make sure to take that into consideration, hence the need for conversations between your climate and your planning staff for them to discuss the pros and cons of different approaches. Then what really came into it is that as you're doing your adaptation plans, you got to bring that into your official plan. And again, the level of detail needs to kind of have some conversations between climate and planning staff. One of the things everybody agreed on is that bringing climate change into official plans is only the first step. And that is not going to achieve implementation for you. If all you're going to do is include some kind of, climate change wording or kind of speaking on the official plans, it's going to have value, but it's not going to be nearly as good as integrating climate change into overall municipal decision making, which is the holy grail we're all trying to aim for. So one of the key things is that it's not just enough to have a climate change adaptation plan. It's not just enough to have a climate change mitigation plan, as important as those two initiatives are. But no matter what, even if you don't have that, even if you don't have those adaptation or mitigation plans, there's huge opportunities to bring climate change into existing municipal plans. And it is a really, really important thing to be for it to be doing. Now, you don't have to do them all at once. No one's expecting that. But as these plans get updated within your municipality, bringing climate change integration as a core component of that update is totally recommended. And it was recommended by all different stakeholders. So really, when it came down to it, really doing a lot of consultations across the different municipalities, huge value that comes from that. Climate change is really interspersed across a variety of different departments, and they all need to understand what climate change means to their responsibilities. So those conversations are really, really important to have. And really, when it comes down to it, this really results in really, really good relationship building that can take place. So one of the other kind of things to take into consideration, that even once you've got climate change integrated into your official plan, growth management is kind of starting to apply a climate lens and a financial sustainability lens to its decisions, which would be wonderful. I did want to kind of highlight, this is part of an overall a municipal climate accountability. And it's not just municipal, it's like every one of us, every single sector of society has to do better at bringing those climate change accountabilities to our decision making. So really the goal is that climate should never be isolated into any one plan. It should be integrated across all municipal decision makings. The starting of doing that would be passing your climate emergency declaration. That is a climate lens that you've started applying for your decisions. You've recognized that it's emergency. You recognize that you're not doing enough. You recognize that you need to do more. That is an approach for a climate lens on-ramp. One of the other things that we've kind of highlighted is that climate implication sections of all council reports. That's something that is really making a lot of headway in some municipalities. There's kind of concerns related to how much staff capability there is to complete that kind of climate implication sections. And I admit right now, there's a lot of conversations taking place between staff people who are developing these reports and the climate change staff people. And that takes an enormous amount of time on the climate change staff people's time. So it's not a long-term sustainability strategy. And we're working on trying to find ways to simplify that and streamline that and build climate literacy, not just within the climate departments, but across all municipal departments. There is a red, yellow, green climate lens that has been developed. This was just from input that we developed at the Clean Air Partnership because municipal staff really needed just something. Yes, there's climate implications. Maybe there's climate implications. No, there's not climate implications. Carry on.